Yeah.
It's 7:03 on Thursday, March 21st, and I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order. This is Sarah Melish, the chair. I have with me in the room, Maureen Creighton, Peter Twining, Michael Pratt, Dean Nahadas, Andy Olderman, and Town Administrator Greg Pittersfield. Tom said he couldn't make it. It's Gail on? No. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was just in the MBTA task force meeting, so. So the first item on the agenda is to go through some of these line items. Yeah. We either haven't done or we have done and we need to make adjustments. So. The first item is the debt service. On March 13th, we approved, and this is on page 95. On March 13th, we approved $973,727, and we put a hold on the $30,000, which is anticipation for the bonding in this budget. Is that correct, Greg?
Well, it's anticipation of some bans,
Okay,
so it just assumed, up to 2 million in a ban for the first year,
okay,
so it wasn't, it wasn't based on the full bond.
So that's projected interest on 2 million of bans issued. As opposed to like underwriting fees or any other kind of, like that's an interest number?
It's mostly the underwriting and legal fees.
It is mostly underwriting legal, okay.
Exactly. Because we won't, again, we don't incur interest that first year. It starts the second year.
So we'd expect 2 million of the, whatever the bigger number is, 7, 8, 9, whatever.
Yeah,
But-
rejecting 7 and 6 at this point.
But that's based on 2 million. 2 million in fiscal 25.
Yes.
I know we'll probably get to it, but what is the final debt number that you're,
let's wait till we get to that.
because this. Okay,
He's saying that he's not including the whole debt in this
I
count.
understand that. So where does 2 million come from? Where it's obviously just an anticipation, I guess, of borrowing more.
That's why I said a bigger number, because
Yeah,
It's about a third of what we would.
about a third what we're gonna do.
the bigger number might be 7, 8, 9, but
So is this 30,000 for the first third, and then we anticipate another hit at 30,000 next year or the year after for writing additional bonds?
There'll be some interest charge on top of that.
Okay.
Yes.
So do I have a motion to approve the 30,000 in temporary loan / interest in the debt service budget?
So moved.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Andy seconds. Any discussion?
I just, and this is a later part when we talk about the other stuff, but at some point we'll hear what you used for an assumed interest rate, I assume. I'm not now, I'm just saying later.
Yeah, yeah.
There is an assumed interest rate.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Not here.
I'll take a vote. Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Next is the employee benefits, insurance and pension on page 98, and I believe the issue is the casualty and property insurance. And
Yes.
we have new numbers.
The deductible.
Right.
So we did an analysis of the last, so we got quotes for high deductible.
Mhm.
10,000 for property and 2,000 on auto, 2,000 and 1,000.
I think you already mentioned the auto was already kind of at 2,500. It was the other one that the deductible was like crazy low.
Yeah, so we did, so a 10,000 deductible for the property, it would save us 17,800, I believe. And we did analysis of what we paid, what we had for claims for the last 3 years, and the average was over that. 18,000, just under 18,000. So we would not save money at that higher deductible with the lower premium.
And what's the deductible we've had as we've gone along, like this year? What's the deductible we have? Do we have any deductible?
Yeah, it's, want to get up a chart that you gave me. She wasn't on there for a minute, looks like she went off. Let me get that, hold on just a second. I think it's $1,000 deductible for general property.
It's been typical for us in sort of the last couple of years, in terms of claims in the year.
I'm sorry.
18,000 or so has been typical over the last few years for claims made by us.
Correct.
But I'm having trouble with the math. If we went to a 10,000 deductible, we save 18,000 in annual premium, is that right?
Correct.
So even if you have a claim, you're still ahead of the game by $8,000, right?
So I think she accounted for that. So I must be stating the,
Nice. Am I doing my math right?
Andrew, can you help out here? I don't have that chart you just set up on my screen yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was having technical difficulties. I just got on, so I'm not sure where we are in the discussion.
You had done your 3-year average, I think it was.
Property and casualty deductibles.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
This is
Just- If you could just walk us through the calculations you came up with, that would be helpful. I will
Sure.
try to put it up on my screen as well.
So what I did is I took the number of claims for each of the last 3 full fiscal years, did the average, and then I did the current deductible versus the proposed deductible. And so what I did under current amount paid is, the average number of claims times the current deductible, which is $500. And then the next column in the amount estimated paid, that's the average, same number of average claims times the proposed deductible of 1,000 to get the 4,300. And then I did the difference. And then
It's the 4,300?
that's $1,000 times the 4.33 average. So if we had say we had 4 claims, that would cost us $1,000 in deductible.
We're averaging 4.3 claims a year?
Yes.
Okay, like, I know insurance pretty well, I don't know if other people do, but like, that's insane. And like, what then happens is the carrier is killing you on the premium, right? Because you're just bang, 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 like claim after claim after claim, you know what I mean?
So this is, a dozen buildings. And 70 employees. So it's not the same as your home in terms of,
No, I'm thinking of it in terms of a business. I'm thinking about in terms of a $40 million business. And if a $40 million business, right, which is about the revenue,
Right.
had a deductible at 1,000 and was making 4.3 claims a year. trust that insurance carrier would be hammering in terms of the subsequent year premiums. Cause like,
Yeah, we haven't been actually, our premiums have not
it,
increased that much.
I mean, I don't wanna go down in insurance, whatever, but you know, insurance is there to be able to sleep at night if God forbid, like major things happen. It's not supposed to be there for the little nickel and dime things, you know what I mean? So,
True, but if you have those different dimes, you have to pay for them. One way or the other.
right, but like I said before in the last meeting, it 99 times out of 100, it comes out that if you quote unquote self-insure, which again, going from 1,000 to 10,000 is not exactly self-insuring, it's just upping it, but you know, like that's 17,000 a year. I don't know, I guess I'd need to look at the data, because to me, 17,000 a year versus a 10,000 deductible. Every year you are covered for a full claim and have $7,000 left. Now, yes, if there's multiple, which again, 4.3, so,
Well, we can't control the number of claims,
yeah, no,
okay?
well, no, but my point is,
Maybe
if you had a $10,000 deductible,
you would have fewer claims.
you're not gonna make a claim for $2,000.
Right.
Obviously, because that's below your deductible. You're not gonna make a claim for $5,000. You're not gonna make a claim for $7,000, right? You're only gonna make a claim if it's above the deductible.
So do we know
What
what?
the total claims were?
I'm sorry, I
There we go.
stepped out of the room for a minute. We're talking about $1,000 deductible, and what's that on? That's property,
Property casualty.
Property
Auto,
casualty.
auto.
the properties. Is that right, Andrea?
Well, currently we have a deductible of 1,000 on properties.
Okay,
Yeah.
And currently on the auto insurance policy, we have a current deductible of 500.
okay.
So there's two different deductible amounts that we have right now.
What I'd need to see to run the math is like what, you mentioned 4.3 claims a year, but what are the dollar amounts of those claims, right?
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to put that together yet.
Cause like, if the average claim, I'll make this up, if the average claim is for like $200,000, that's one thing, but if the average claim is for like $3,000, that's a different thing.
Okay, I'm gonna make a suggestion. If maybe this can be studied a little more, but if we're assuming that we would save 18,000 by going to a higher deductible, but we think we have 18,000 of claims that we would have to pay directly, why don't we leave this line item in the budget as it is? And maybe further analysis can be done to see whether they should
Yeah, I mean,
decrease.
I'm
the-
willing to
the
look at further
deductible.
analysis, but like, if you had a gun to my head right now, I'd vote for the $10,000.
I would too.
If you had a gun to my head right now, that's what I would do, but I'm fine looking at the data more to see, because I need to see the dollar amounts of the claims, that's very relevant.
Well, I think it's for Andrea to analyze the data. Right, not for us.
I just want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that together.
So even if we can still switch, nothing prevents us from
Right.
switching to a higher claim, a higher deductible,
Okay,
start for July.
okay,
And if you leave in the higher number, and if we do switch, then that higher number allows for paying off the higher deductible if needed.
right,
Right, that's the self-insurance piece.
right,
And if we don't need it, we don't spend it, we don't spend it, it goes in the fund
Right.
balance and, whatever. So I think your suggestion to leave the number makes sense. We can continue to do some deeper analysis to see if it makes sense to go to a higher deductible. But I don't think it won't change the number for next year,
okay.
if that makes sense to folks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna die on this hill for the 20,000 increase, but yes, I'd like a commitment that, we're gonna further study the numbers, because I'm convinced that the higher deductible makes sense.
I think just as a matter of curiosity, I'd be curious what the total claims are
Okay.
at some point too. I mean, are we,
Yes.
at the end of the day, Andrea, are we talking about, $50,000 in a roof here and a car wheel there? Or are we talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands? So.
Right,
Just general question.
It's been a long time since we've had the biggest claim we had was
Water
the
treatment plant.
treatment water plant
Right.
roof.
Yeah, so,
That was the huge claim. That was 1.5 million or something.
right. That's.
And those are the claims that, right, you're happy you have insurance, right? Like. But my point is, you shouldn't be nickeling and diming for like $2,000 here and $3,000, because that just pisses off the insurance carrier, and you know what I mean? It's better to self-insure. You take that 10, you take that 18,000 a year, you put it here, and then you've got the cash in hand to pay the $2,000 for the $2,000 claim, or the $3,000, not a claim, you pay it yourself.
No, I understand, I understand.
So do I have a motion to approve the casualty and liability insurance in the amount of 155,000? And, Moore moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Andy seconds. Any more discussion?
Can I put in the motion, it's commitment, we're gonna have further discussion though, or no?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Subject to further discussion of the details of the.
Subject to further review of the benefits of going to a higher deductible.
Second that too.
Second or motion that.
You accept the friendly amendment.
I accept a friendly amendment, sorry.
Okay, we're ready to vote? Andy,
Yes.
Dean, Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
No,
Maury,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Animal control, page 114. $115, excuse me. So this was. We were pending on the new contract. I think you feel we can go ahead with this.
Yeah, I'm comfortable level funding it, and if we see increase, will be very minor.
Okay,
I'm not worried about that.
we're only paying 15,000, how much can we go up? You know, you do kind of say that.
It might go up 2,000, but.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the animal control budget in the amount of 16,315?
I have a record that we voted this at that number on March 13th. Is that wrong? As we've already approved it. I think.
No, we hoped to do it on the 13th, but then we didn't have the numbers.
Okay,
So Andy moves it. Do I have a second?
second,
Peter seconds it. Any discussion? Take a vote. Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay. Now we get to the water department. I don't have the page numbers down. So we voted the clerk of the works in the DPW at 90,000. Right, and now there needs to be some type of an adjustment.
What page?
I didn't have it written down, sorry, I'm looking for it.
75 plus. So here's the beginning,
I'm sorry, what page, Fred?
175, 177.
77.
Yeah,
is
177.
water. So. Where's the 30,000 going?
So it would be in the transfers to the general fund, that 181 number would increase by 30,000.
Okay,
Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea, but I think that's quite.
And that represents.
That's correct.
Okay, and the 60 that comes from the two enterprise, we do something else to get that into the budget?
So we're suggesting 30 from water, 30 from sewer, that's 60 becomes a revenue stream.
Thank you, I now see where you're doing. Thank you.
So that 30,000 comes to 3,331, 211,333.
Yeah.
Sound right?
That's right.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve, to reapprove with a different number, the transfers to general fund in the amount of $211,333 in the water department?
And do we have to also revote the total, or is that not
We
necessary?
did that.
Well, so-
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Total will change.
Total number will change. It's gonna drop
Sorry,
to
can-
60.
Don't
just revote the total?
No, you're asking if we should, you want to revote the
586,
586,
293.
okay. So it would be 616,293,
Yes.
okay,
Then that,
but
I'll move
no, no, I'm sorry, never mind.
Hold on, where's the 211,333?
That is
the transfers.
this number
Okay.
plus 30,
and so
and the total's plus 30.
we voted on the total, so Peter's suggesting we need to revote the total, which makes sense.
So I'm probably beating a dead horse. The extra 30 grand is,
It's a third of
Part of
the
the sharing.
clerk of the works guy that they're gonna hire for oversight of projects.
And so the full 90,000 was in DPW, and then they transfer money from water and sewer to DPW to cover that expense.
That's the 60.
so a third goes in sewer, a third goes in water, a third goes in
The taxation.
DPW.
Yeah. But we show the whole expense in DPW and then these transfers to cover. You made the motion, Andy? Oh, Dean made the
I'll
motion,
make the
okay,
motion to approve for 616,293.
okay. Do I have a second?
Second. Peter, second.
Peter seconds. Take a vote. Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Maureen,
yes.
and Sarah votes yes. No. 616,293.
And then a few pages further in 184. It's basically the same process here for the sewer. It's the same line that you see transfers to general fund. We're currently at 392,929.
So that would be 412.
So, yeah.
422. 180.
184.
Yeah.
Total down below would increase by
It would be
so the
190.
1093 and 17.
Six.
Is this what's in the new budget book that you sent us the link to? It's already in there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just haven't pulled it up yet. I've got it on my laptop. I just. Do I have a motion to reapprove sewer department budget in the amount of $1,093,772?
So moved.
Maureen moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dean seconds. Okay, take a vote. Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Okay.
Water?
What?
Water, do you want to do the same thing over?
We did water.
We did water.
We did water and sewer.
And it's from DPW. already.
Yeah, and DPW, we did a while ago, or last week. Okay, so,
for the full 90s in DPW.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
And shouldn't
Because
Shouldn't the-
they're an enterprise fund.
shouldn't the 30 grand go the other way?
No, they're using revenue from water and sewer to pay DPW for the cost of that person in the water and sewer department. It's the only way they can get the money from the enterprise fund to cover the salary.
No, I 100% get the concept and it makes sense and I'm in agreement with it. I'm just saying the math, like, this is a total expense column, right? And it's like, I feel like we're doubling on the expense side. Do you know what I'm saying? Because
Andrea, can you explain to us how that works on your books?
Sure, so it does seem like a double expense, but it also is offset by revenue in a way. So you start off you vote this expense in the enterprise fund. And so I expense it and I move it as a revenue source to the general fund. And so in the general fund, I'll have a revenue and then I have the expense again. but it offsets. It's like a net zero in the general fund.
Can you do that again slower? Yeah, the full 90 expenses in DPW, right? There's step one, right?
Yes, in the general fund,
Yep.
right?
And then we wanna move 30 grand, right, to whatever, I don't know, water or sewer, right?
Right.
So we're
Yes.
pulling 30 grand of cash, right, out of
Water and sewer.
a water fund, 30 grand out of, okay. So like, to me conceptually, that should produce like a negative.
She's increasing the total revenues though. That go to the general fund. To reduce the
Yeah,
debt.
it's a true expense in the enterprise fund, which is why it's shown as an expense and as an indirect cost, right?
I agree that it's an expense in the enterprise fund, but in here, it should be a negative, shouldn't it?
So maybe is the difference that
It's an expense in DPW, but we're showing the revenue that offsets that same expense.
No, I get the full 90 expense in DPW. I get that. That's crystal clear. What I'm saying is, when it comes to water and sewer, we're pulling 30 grand cash out of the enterprise fund
Yeah.
into the water budget. No,
It's an expense. It's, those dollars are flowing into the general fund for the DPW to expend.
okay,
is the
So-
difference that the water and sewer
okay.
budgets are paid for by the
So-
enterprise fund, and so they don't appear on taxation?
Right,
Yeah.
that's why it's
Yeah.
a firewall.
So they're separate accounts.
So Andrea, when you do your budget numbers for that DPW 90,000, in effect, you're saying 30 is coming from each of the enterprise accounts?
Correct.
Yes,
So I'll have a budgeted transfer in, budgeted revenue in the general fund for that.
And we have that for other things too in water and sewer, correct?
We do, yes,
For other employees.
yes.
yes, and
Okay.
different benefit funds,
Okay.
health insurance and.
Debt
uh,
service, workers' comp,
Yeah, yeah.
FICA.
So the 60 grand that's coming out of the water and the sewer enterprise fund. That's just like.
It's like a
Going,
reimbursement almost.
is it going into DPW or no? It's just,
What's going into the general fund. But
it's
it's
going in the big pot,
going into
From the
the
big
town pot,
going in the big pot,
not the
okay,
enterprise pot. So it's in order to pay that DPW expense.
It couldn't be other financing in the DPW budget.
We
It's-
can't recreate the wheel.
Right, no, no, I.
This is the way the accounting's been done.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think they're paying payroll out of DPW.
Right.
And so she needs to be able to put the DPW, the expense into DPW and then reimburse it.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm just
Otherwise, they'd have to count all their hours in each area.
I'm
Yeah,
just
I'd have to
trying
have 3
to-
timesheets,
I just have to-
every payroll.
And I'm actually not gonna be able to see it like as a line item, I guess.
Right. Because otherwise you might be able to show the 30 grand against DPW and knowing that it's gonna come in from water and sewer. But I guess we can't do that. We have to appropriate it because it's gonna be paid out of DPW.
Right.
So, but it ends up being, more money going to the general fund.
And excluded from the calculation of the tax rate.
Yes,
She knows money coming over, right?
That's right, it's a transfer.
right.
And we'll
Okay.
be doing this for the next 3 or 4 years. Right, well, it's-
Well,
And you can also change the ratios too, if you decide that 20 million comes from water or 20, whatever, 20 comes from water and 60 comes from sewer, you can play that game too.
depending on the projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't say million, sorry.
Okay. The next item I have. Well, maybe we want to go to these other stuff before I get into like the turf field and that sort of thing.
Some of the other items on that memo, other than the email.
Yeah, because all the other things I have is the turf field, the feasibility, and then capital items. According to my records, we've approved everything else.
subject to change.
Start with OPEB, or we go like that.
Yeah, let's start with OPEB because I didn't see that on the sheet, so I got confused. That's right. We have OPEB we have to re-vote on, right? Okay. And it's not clear to me whether we're
Where it
paying for
is.
taxation or reserves. I don't see it on the reserves list.
It's not on the reserve, so I'm assuming it's coming out of taxation.
Okay,
And the reason why is because of all the other needs for fund balance, and we paid it out of taxation last year.
okay.
So I'm still following that. I think it should be a budgeted item that we pay for.
Well, it has been, right?
It
It's-
had, and so it started out as being paid out of fund balance.
Oh.
And then a year or two ago, we switched over to taxation.
What, does it even make a difference, meaning, you know, you have that number, I think it's 1.4 million, but don't shoot me if I'm off, right? Like, that's the, like, drawdown of, right, reserves, right? And so, let's say OPEB is what, 300?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and if there was some other 300 thing in that 1.4, some capital item, let's say turf field, I don't care, right?
Right.
So they're both 300 grand.
Yeah.
What do I care?
No.
Does it matter? Well, like, whether you say OPEB is coming out of taxation and the turf field's coming out of capital, or vice versa, like, it's.
It doesn't really, but in
Cash.
my mind, because it's an ongoing expense, at least for the next, 8 years. My bias would be to have it come out of taxation because it's a,
But my point is
It's a note.
mathematically,
Mathematically,
it
it
does
doesn't
not matter.
correct,
I could be like, you know. The turf field needs to be taxation and open, and the math does not change.
correct.
Okay.
It does. You're right about that.
Okay,
No, I think I kind of muddied the works on this one because early on I thought that we could make a larger contribution and take it out of stabilization.
Right.
But when the numbers all come together, a larger contribution doesn't seem to be affordable this year.
so,
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It made sense early on, and then, quite frankly, it's the feasibility study that
Yeah.
Right.
Screwed
was
us
for the biggest loop.
but I think, at least from my standpoint, that I'll keep calling it 1.4, right? Like. To the degree possible, it should come out of stabilization, right? Because that was our original kind of strategy, right?
The 1.4, some of that 1.4 can come out of stabilization.
Correct,
It certainly can.
yeah,
So to me, I lump the two together, and I don't really make a distinction.
well, I think they're very different, even if, like you said, there's a new state law and now it's.
But that's why I feel but anyways, I don't need to argue that one way or the other. It's it's neither here nor there for me.
Well, they become more similar to that because of that state law,
Correct.
but they're still different in the sense of what is underlying.
So yeah, I mean, stabilization is different because it has to be a positive vote to put the money into it. Whereas fund balance, free cash, that just is what flows into it, that's not spent.
Yeah, no, that's, sorry, let me re-articulate. What I'm saying is the investments currently underlying those two things are different.
Correct.
Oh, that's true, yes.
And so I am strongly in favor of coming out of stabilization.
Yeah, I think
To
that,
the degree we need to get some,
I think we voted on, I think we voted on aiming to have stabilization come down to about 2% of the operating.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so if we stick with that, so the total's 8 and 2% is stabilization and then the other 6 is,
So,
because we're not,
I think also on town meeting floor, it's easier to say we're pulling from stabilization for something
Yes.
that is meaningful, not that things aren't meaningful, but are well packaged, like a feasibility study or OPEB or something like that. If we're pulling from stabilization for half of a police car and a third of a water pump, that's a little more challenging, you know?
Especially for people to understand.
I agree 100%, but I'm actually coming at it, I mean, we're all coming to the same place, but I'm coming at it from a different angle, which is the underlying investments in stabilization are right. They're, I mean, they're riskier investments, you know? And I don't want that. Like, I want to be in really short-term, high security, like, you know.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve 300,000 total to be paid to OPEB in fiscal year 25 from taxation?
So moved.
Maury moves. Do I have a second?
Is there a page I should be looking at?
No.
I'm looking at page
Oh.
52, but there's not much detail. It's just it's a place to write your notes.
I'll second. So,
Any seconds?
I have some discussions.
Yes.
So like, when I was questioned about the Essex Elementary School feasibility study,
Yes.
and why wouldn't that come out of taxation in a year where our school budget is only 2% increase?
Well, we're not talking about that now. We're
But
talking
it's the
about
same,
OPEB.
it's the same logic, whether it's taxation or a reserve is, it's not the amount to pay, it's what fund. That was the discussion, so. Just doesn't, I guess it doesn't matter, it's at the bottom, at the end of the day, it's all gonna figure into the.
It all comes, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it all comes down to, we're agreeing that we want total reserves to be 8%. Not even getting into the 2 versus the 6, but just,
Right.
right? If you support targeting 8%, that drives most of the other math, right?
Taxation, yeah.
How much we can pull out of free cash to pay towards, well, anything, but capital. Right? I mean, that's what,
But I also like Greg's argument that OPEB is not a one-time payment. It's an ongoing payment, therefore that makes sense to me to come out of taxation.
I only care, given Maury's comment, when, right, if we're gonna talk about pulling cash out of stabilization, it's gonna make a more compelling argument that we're doing it, we're pulling out long-term cash investments to buy long-term assets, right? So then, you know, that makes sense.
So there's a motion on the floor and it's seconded.
Yes. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay. So do we want to go through this sheet on the summary of fund balance use, capital exclusion and bonds?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yep.
Good time to do that?
I'll put it up on the screen or.
Yeah, that'd be useful.
Yes. We need that. Christine, Mike.
No, I should be able to go through my computer.
This is a spreadsheet you sent yesterday.
Too many things also.
I printed it.
I'm seeing paper.
I have it on my computer too. I'll get there eventually. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Sarah, you sent this yesterday, is that correct?
I didn't send it. Greg,
Greg sent it.
Greg sent,
Greg
sorry,
sent it,
okay.
Wednesday.
Thank you for that advance.
Yeah, it's helpful having it earlier.
Yeah.
Minimize the Zoom window.
Top bar.
Guess maybe, hit the hash mark on the top left. The hash mark on the top left of the Zoom window, this thing. Up on screen. There.
Right.
That's the whole, the black window,
what are we trying to
maybe
do?
it's not important, because all the data's on the left anyway. Don't worry about it.
I'm just trying to shrink the ribbon up top.
Yeah, you could do that if you put the. Is that touchscreen?
But yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, but I'm just trying to move the ribbon.
Yeah, so if you touch them,
Maybe not because it's on my screen.
that's.
All right, well, yeah, this will start us. What we have, 2.78 in free cash. 1.95 in stabilization, so that's a total of the 4.7 target. Down below here. Depends if you want to include your regular capital expenses or not.
no,
If you don't, then your target is 3.1. 8% of roughly 39.6 million, something like that.
To keep things simple, sorry to interrupt, but should we like vote on the choice there, just?
we voted that months ago that our target was gonna be based on total operating budget.
8%.
8% of total operating, which would be the 3144.
Okay.
Excluding regular cap.
I'm fine with the 3.144.
Yeah.
Just
That's what we voted
you
on.
can
That's our
delete
target.
that row, because the one above it.
It's fine, it's fine. So. In your, what I'll call plain vanilla capital, your Article 5 capital items, we're showing $450,000, 449,600. In addition, we have that transfer out of fund balance to the new opioid special account, 8,800. And then assuming that the launch service is approved, voters would approve 9,500 for May and June for this fiscal year, current fiscal year supplemental appropriation. And then I'm showing the purchase of the launch boats for 125,000. And then this is showing 500,000, which is a little higher than originally projected. We're showing 350, but we upped it by 150. So reducing taxation by 150. So 500,000 for the Mason building purchase. It's half of the price. And then we show the Highland turf field. When we rounded, I think it's slightly lower than 248,500. I think it's 248,300 and change, 300 something. Anyway, in round numbers, 248,500, and then showing $100,000 as a supplemental appropriation for legal services for this current fiscal year. That's comprised of the 40B appeal and a number of different other appeals that are working their way through the courts, as well as a lot of planning, zoning work that in the fall ran up legal expenses.
When you say current fiscal year, though, you mean fiscal 2025,
No, 24,
the one we're in,
the one we're in.
the one there's 2 months and
We got
3
3 months to go.
3 months to go.
Yes. In order to balance, we'll probably need more than 100,000, but I think we will have transfers that we can do, you know, between departments, and your own reserve fund.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to come at it conceptually, like, this is all part of a fiscal 2025 budget. How does the mechanics work, where we get 100?
Oh, it's a warrant article it's a separate warrant
It's a
article.
standalone article that'll.
Oh, it's standalone,
Yeah,
okay,
it won't be part of your it'll be a standalone article
okay,
as a supplemental
it's
appropriation.
actually got nothing to do with fiscal 2025.
Correct. But it impacts the fund balance, because that's.
It's here just for cash purposes.
Yeah, what I asked him to do was a reconciliation of this, because there are so many pieces coming from so many different warrant articles. I found it confusing.
Yeah.
To understand where we were.
It's just, when I look at row one, it says FY 25, but if I was
Right,
super
but this-
technical,
this-
no, I
I
get
got-
it,
I
that
got-
one,
I've got 2 exceptions. The harbor salaries of 9,500. And then this, I
yeah,
should.
no, I'm just looking at the spreadsheet.
I know.
FY 24 here.
Okay,
So that all comes to 1.4. And that would leave then a balance of 3.3 rounded.
So you got another 150 grand to go.
You could use another 150 if you want to hit
Yeah,
that
please.
3.1 on the nose.
Yes.
Can we also use what's assumed to come in from this year? Like, there's another 500,000?
we've already gone through the revenue. We're not gonna
Yeah.
go through that again.
Okay,
Okay, we voted on the revenue. We upped it by 200,000.
that was for 25. I'm saying,
No, we have to do the appropriations. You can't juggle stuff during the year. It's certified when the tax rate's certified, right, Andrea?
Well,
No, it's actually certified when I submit the balance sheet, which is usually around September. So that way you can have it for, you know, any special town meetings or anything like that.
so the answer is no, we can't.
No,
do that.
right. It's not like a business where if your revenue's higher during the year, you can spend it.
Well, we know there's another 500,000 going to the water barrel at the end of the year. So even though we know that's coming in, we're still gonna take out a loan in a bond to spend money.
We're not at the bond section.
Right.
We're talking about using free cash right now.
High level, I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
And I'd argue we are chipping away at that,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because we grabbed the 200 and then next year we'll see it come in. And if again, we're 800 grand over, like I'm sure we will be, then
Right.
next
So
year we'll
you see
chip
what
it a
I'm
little
talking
more.
about.
Oh, yeah, we just, but it's a chip away and
Okay.
that's how I see it, but.
Yeah.
The state limits what we can do.
Mhm.
So the state won't allow us to anticipate
Right,
a
okay,
cash balance.
Gotcha.
We have to use the certified balance that they give us.
okay, answer the question, thank you.
So there's an extra 150 grand.
Right.
Rounding.
So let's go through the rest of this.
Yeah,
Like to me, I know when you scroll down, see that 660? Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just throwing this out there, don't shoot me, but just mathematically, if you take the 500. For the Mason at 150, that's 650, that's pretty close to 660. So you could swap them, you know what I mean? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, so either way, it's the same number, you're gonna have to raise them.
no, but we're taking that other $150,000 additional out of the.
Right, what I'm saying is I think we all wanna use an extra 150 of free cash so that we truly get down to 8%, and I'm just throwing out an idea, it doesn't need to be the idea, the solution, I'm saying, it is an idea of how to. Use the extra 150 grand.
Let's
That's-
go through
You
the
can-
rest of the thing on the spreadsheet and then figure out where how we use that 150, because I agree with you, we want to use it.
Sure, we all want to use it.
I think you have two choices,
Reduce the tax rate.
well, three choices. You could reduce the tax rate. You could lower the amount that you need for the feasibility study. Or you lower the amount that you're gonna bond. I think those are your three choices.
Okay.
Those are your three buckets that are requiring.
Yeah.
You know, expenditures, so, of those three, I tend to favor the lowering the bond amount.
Yeah,
We're worried about, you know, those debt payments going forward. And I think I think the 660 is a discrete, one-time expense that lends itself to a capital exclusion. And if voters want to go forward with the project, it's another, it's 2.2% on the tax rate, percentage points.
it's fine, I just want to use the 150.
Yeah.
So the three choices for the 150, lower the tax rate, reduce the amount to borrow with bonds, what was the third choice?
Lower the feasibility capital exclusion amount,
Which would lower the tax rate.
which in effect lowers the tax rate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
lowers the amount of taxes.
So because we're looking to. use
so one is
some
an
of our-
immediate lower, if you put it towards I'm sorry, if you put it towards a feasibility study, it's an immediate lowering of the tax rate for 25. If you lower the bond, you're anticipating lowering the debt service in a couple of years.
Well, but let's just be clear. If you were to apply the 150 to the 660.
Right.
It's not lowering the tax rate, it is
Lowering the increase.
lowering the increase, like, let's be,
Yeah, no, I agree,
yeah, it's lowering an increase.
correct,
You're still gonna have, you're gonna have your regular 2.5% increase,
yes.
regular. And then over here, you got your capital exclusion thing, and instead of being 2%, it'll be 1.5. I'm obviously making this up, but
Correct,
it'll be a lower increase on that capital exclusion amount.
yes. That's exactly right.
So do people have a preference as to?
I was gonna say, since had a goal to use some of our excess capacity, it would make more sense to use it to reduce the bond. As opposed to lower the tax rate.
How will the voters perceive it? Will the lowering of the tax rate be perceived as more beneficial than the future cost of a higher borrowing?
Right.
With all of you guys with all these
Maybe
years of
this year,
experience.
but not 2 years from now.
That's exactly
I
right.
understand, but I'm
That's the
asking for a perception matter.
Yeah. That's exactly the situation.
Because I saw that in action a little bit last year. At least if I read that correctly, they perceived that the lowering of the tax rate was more valuable. So
I might be in the minority, maybe I'm alone, which I usually am, but you know, in my opinion, taking the 150 and lowering the feasibility is like the middle of the road, right? Like the two extremes is obviously you could just lower the regular 2.5% rate. That's, you know, that's extreme this way. Lowering the bonded amount is extreme the other way. And just taking 150 off the top of the 660 to me is like the middle of the road. That's how I view it.
you go for lowering the tax rate.
Again, lowering the increase of the capital
I
exclusion.
understand.
No, I just like this.
Yeah, I know.
There's no actual lowering of anything. No, but option A is a true lower. Like, we could lower the property tax rate from a 2.5 to like 2, you know, right? Like, that is a choice, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying a lowering of the increase of the capital exclusion, you know.
Well, that's what I favor. Okay.
Wait.
I want people's opinions.
What are you favoring, Peter?
I'm sorry, I favor lowering the
The 660?
yes.
Okay.
So.
I just threw a question out there real quick.
Yeah,
So since the 660 is a capital exclusion, that always has to go on the ballot. And then if we start taking an amount off, I assume it's still gonna be part of the same warrant article, but then when you go to the ballot, are we gonna have 150 like already approved, and then what if the ballot fails? Are we still gonna have 150 sitting there for the feasibility study? Like, how would that work?
Well, I think,
We'd have less money available for the feasibility study. Right?
well, I think you could approve, so if you have a vote that says we approve 660 for feasibility with 150 coming from fund balance, and the remainder subject to a capital exclusion. But both going forward only if the capital exclusion
Exactly.
is approved. I think,
That's,
can we put that
that's
proviso on there?
that's wordy, but that's how you do it.
But it's,
So I just feel like that's gonna cause a lot of confusion, whereas if you're gonna vote
Right,
150,000 to reduce the tax rate, it's doing the same thing as reducing the capital exclusion if it passes.
Yeah.
and it's longer term,
I like the simplicity.
You like the simplicity of,
reducing the tax.
Oh, just reducing, I follow you and I support the notion, but just
Given the complexity that it introduces if the ballot fails and the 150 kind of goes back to where it came from and, you know, we're not doing what we want to do.
so you're saying go with option A?
Option A.
I'm fine, you can get me there.
So
so then-
that means that you're deleting the,
I think all we're doing, we're just taking 150 grand, throwing it in a big pot, and the net result is it's gonna lower the tax rate, right?
So if you look at the bottom, so I have the estimated tax increase in those three buckets. So your general operations at 2.5 is gonna be less.
Right.
It's gonna go, see if I can give you a rough number.
What you do is-
So 150. Divided by 300. Oh, it's that high.
I was gonna say, it's probably about- It's gonna be around 2%.
It's a 0.5%, so it's gonna be 2% instead of 2.5. Anyways,
what's the bond reduction tax increase? There's a line here that says bond reduction tax increase 1%.
oh, that was like when I was splitting. In option one, I was using 300,000, no, yeah, 300,000 more in taxation. But I was only using,
I'm
Half
not
it.
following, I'm not, I mean,
frankly, it's not worth explaining. It was, what I was doing was using 1% for taxation for feasibility and 1% for taxation for reducing the bond amount. So 300,000 each. And then it occurred to me, why split it up? Just put the full 2% on the feasibility instead.
So
but you're showing here 4.53%, what does that equal?
That's the total of those three numbers.
So that's the total tax rate increase,
Correct.
okay, that's what I thought,
and we're saying it's gonna be 4.
it's gonna be 4.03 instead of 4.53, yeah,
Let's call it 4.
yeah.
You can call it 4.
Yes.
It's gonna be 4, and it's gonna be comprised of row 35 will be 2.0. 36 stays at the 1.03 and 37 stays at 1.0. Is that right? High level.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like if you're trying to explain that 4% increase, you'd have to say there's actually 3 pieces.
Yeah.
You got your regular property tax increase is 2%. Then you got a capital exclusion for 1%. No,
Well, again, this is the decision. I think it's cleaner just to say 2% on the feasibility.
what's the, yeah, okay, so what's the pros and cons versus option 2 and option 1?
Just so write it out for a second. So you're saying general operations would become 2%.
This is 2% here, yeah?
So just put 2 there.
Yeah, but, yeah,
And then that stays at 2.03.
Yeah. And I gotta get the decimals right here.
And that one.
That's staying 0. So my total is 4.03.
Right.
well, can I suggest something? I think it's a two-step thing. And to me, step one is we pick option A, B, and C on the 150 grand, meaning do we pick lower the property tax rate, apply it to take it off the top of the 660, or put it towards the bond, right? Like we decide that for, because it seems like we're leaning towards option A, lower the
Option
tax
A,
rate.
yes.
If we agree on that, then Greg can just change cells B and C 35 to 2.0, and then we can look at option 1 versus option 2 there. You
Exactly.
see what I'm saying?
I'm concerned with that approach.
Okay.
I think we should be doing the 2.5% increase for general operations.
So keep
I
operations as operations.
I think that we have been coming in under 2.5% for a lot of years. I think we're running into money issues. And I think we should do that full 2.5%.
But part of the reason we're going with option A is like, we were gonna say, take the 150 off the top of the 660, but that presents its own kind of problem.
Complexity.
Well, what else could we do with this then?
Well, you can lower the bond, you can put it towards capital. You can put it towards capital.
So
So
this,
if the feasibility were to fail,
Mhm.
then you would have just a tax increase of 2%. So you're,
With option
I
three.
don't mean to offend anybody by saying this, you're leaving some money on the table.
right,
In my mind.
Yeah, but no, that's not fair, because look, a tax increase is a tax increase. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it a regular tax increase, you can call it a capital exclusion, you can call it a debt exclusion, you can call it whatever you want. It's a tax increase. You look at your tax bill from last year and it was up by X%.
No, I know.
Does someone really care? Was it, this piece of the increase was due to a capital exclusion, this piece was due to, like,
But my only comment was if the feasibility were to fail, then you're not gonna have your 4% increase, which is what you're anticipating if it doesn't, if it does pass.
no, I understand, but we're talking about 150 grand. We're talking about 0.5%. I mean,
Right, well, those. So in my world, that's cumulative. So when you set the tax rate, and then the next year, my base is based on. what
no,
you think.
I get it. It's compound interest. I get it. It's compound interest. I get the cumulative.
1 year,
I understand that, but
Yeah.
getting the base up is, I think, your thinking.
right,
Yes.
from a psychological standpoint.
I take exactly the opposite. I don't like getting the base up just for the sake of getting the base up. You tax what you need to tax, you pull the cash in, you know.
But one point I would wanna make is that our operating expenses sort of travel from year to year based on what it was the prior year. And so if we are kind of using some reserve funds to artificially lower the 2.5 to 2, because we needed 2.5 to make the budget that we all just approved, then next year you're gonna be at a slight deficit.
But I'd be careful about the way you just said that. I would argue that we're not actually using reserve funds below the tax rate. Because that excess cash that we are gonna use to get down to the 8%, that's operating cash. You know what I mean? It's cash that came into the pot,
Revenue expense.
correct, right?
Yep.
That's operating cash. That's not capital cash, that's operating cash. So we're just, it went in the pot and we're just taking it out of the pot, but it went in operating, we're taking it out operating.
So in
Part of the
26,
place, right?
Well, I'm just saying that next fiscal year,
Next
FY
year.
26, we're gonna be facing
Right.
these numbers and having to, you know, if we're not in the same, if we're not in the same circumstance with reserves, then we're gonna have to beat it through taxation.
Right.
So.
So we're
that's-
transitioning that way.
But to go down that road, that would imply that despite 5 or 6 years of data showing that we every year get
Yeah.
extra cash going in, that next year it's gonna hit right on the penny, 0.0.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah, we.
all I need is 150 grand, right? Roughly extra to, you know what I mean?
So your notion is, let's just call that,
Excess tax money.
Right.
That needs to get applied to. the tax
Exactly.
rate.
Just one of the things we've always held to is that we don't use reserves for operating. And so it goes back to accuracy of budgeting. Budgeting revenues carefully, budgeting expenses carefully, and not letting it all fall down into reserves where we're quote unquote using reserves for operational. And so we are kind of going over the line here and relying on reserves for operational.
No,
That's-
I 100% disagree. Look, if you started the day with 0 in our reserves, 0, right? And we issued a bond for $1 million, okay? And the $1 million bond proceeds went into reserves. and then I took that million out to pay towards anything anything operating, you would have absolute right to point the finger at me and say, that's insane. You took long-term capital proceeds to use towards operating, right? But that's not what's happening here. All that cash that's in our free cash reserves, it's operating, do you know what I mean? It's operating cash.
It's already over.
It's a philosophical.
operating
versus-
overflow.
It's a philosophical versus an operational discussion. Because we have to parse out the year by year. It goes back to what Dean asked earlier about, can we pull from this year's excess to cover something as opposed to dealing with it in fiscal 25?
Right.
The reality of it is, we budget safely on revenues and safely on expenses, so we're always catching stuff in reserves. And in our report, we basically, one of our tenets is we don't use reserves for operational. So the solution to that is really to budget more carefully on reserves or budget more carefully on revenues and expenses.
Agreed.
I'm just saying, if we get into the habit, I think where Andy's going, of we look to reserves every year to carry us operationally, we're creating an issue with what we're saying to the public.
I'm
But-
leaning
but-
towards using the 150K to reduce the bond.
What are the dynamics of that money, like that today money against the,
It's,
it's leveraging.
You would just
interest rates.
use that money for, as cash towards the
Yeah,
capital
And
expense.
borrow less,
Borrow
Yeah.
half of
have
it.
to reduce interest that we would pay against that.
right, because we
Or-
have so
or
much
do it later.
additional borrowing we may need to come up with in the next few years. That's what's making me nervous. And so if we're using cash to fund 150,000 more reserves to use against this capital expense, that's consistent with what we've historically done, and that would reduce the bond by another 150.
So just to be clear and push back on what you said, Maury. So we all agreed to increase the revenue forecast by 200 grand, right?
Yes.
So by the stroke of a pen, we changed 200 grand from what would have been reserved next year to operating this year.
That's different.
No, it's all the same stuff. It's all, it's,
There's a in my book, there's a difference between things already in reserves versus reducing the extent to which future monies go into reserves.
There's the philosophical point.
I just, imagine if our forecast of expenses and revenue had come in exactly at actuals for the past few years. What would that mean?
It would mean we would have 1.5 million left to spend this year.
No, the other way, it would mean we'd have 800 grand more a year to actually spend in each of those years.
No, but this year.
Or lower the tax rate.
This
Either way.
year would be short.
Over the increase.
No, no, no.
It's only $150,000, so I actually don't feel that strongly about it. And I'm not sure it's worth, kind of a philosophical.
I'm gonna make a motion to take the 150 and apply it towards the tax rate.
In what manner?
To lower the 2.5 down to 2.
Is there a second?
Also,
Any more discussion?
That's the least consistent with the philosophical view.
Right.
And the counter view is to apply the 150. Where to keep it more consistent with the philosophy.
To be consistent with what
To
we've
be
been,
as consistent as possible.
with what we've been doing in this budget is we've been trying to reduce the total amount of the bond.
So,
Which is like spending it on capital.
Spending.
so the competing point of view is to take the 150 and reduce the bond.
Yes.
I just want to, I want to be clear on where the 2 points are here.
Well, and
Apply
technically there is a
150.
third choice, but it was, to take the 150 off the 660, but like,
Right.
given what
That-
Andrew
that
said.
Complexity,
Right.
I
Yeah,
well
no,
appreciate.
I'm-
Yeah, that-
So on that, add some complexity if it doesn't pass at the ballot. I also think it's important that the voters look at the 660 in its entirety.
I do
Because
too.
this is the beginning of a big project,
Yes.
and I think people, you know, we're whittling away at 2 or 2.5%. Next year, the year after, that number is gonna be a big one.
Yes.
And so I think it's better to put this in front of people earlier.
In
Yes.
So-
its total
So
magnitude.
you're saying the total 660 should be a capital exclusion?
Keep it
Yes, I am saying that, yes.
For one.
One
Yes.
source,
Yes.
one source.
Yeah, I originally wanted to take the 150 out, 660, but I backed off as soon as I heard the complexity and how it would have to get voted and like, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
So if we do 660 as a capital exclusion,
Mhm.
what are those?
Well, is that the 2.03%?
Well, there's this other 50,000 that was coming from taxation for that, reducing that 660 to 610.
It's really two, if it's 660,
I mean, I don't know. There's been a motion and a second. I just think we vote that because then it determines what's in row 35, right?
Let Greg points his number
yeah,
out.
if the full 660 is 2.2.
Okay, all right.
If you,
Okay. Are we ready to vote on the motion? Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
this is reducing the tax rate from 2.5% to 2%.
Column 3, option 3.
Well, I had, excuse me, I'll say no, because I want it to go to county.
Peter,
Yes.
You skip me.
I'm sorry, Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Sarah votes no.
Right, so now we know that 2.0 is the number for row 35, correct?
So were there other decisions relative to this spreadsheet?
Where did that 50,000 go?
I had it split between, I had it 150, so 100 and another 50, so it all went to taxation.
Okay, so we're reducing taxation by 200,000.
No, 150.
I'm not following this.
What 50 are you talking about, Sarah?
I'm talking about option 2,
Yeah,
where it said 50,000 from taxation.
It's 50,000, that was right here.
Was going to reduce the feasibility study, and then we said, well, we want the full feasibility study cost to go to the voters.
right.
And then we had the 150,000 reduction in reserves, and when I add 150 and 50, I come up with 200,000,
Right.
not 150,000. So that's my question is
I-
where did that 50,000 go?
I think, I could be wrong, I think there's multiple 150,000s. I think there's two distinct 150,000s. There was the one that was already in the file, and then there's the one that we kind of added when we said you need to hit that 3144. Right?
I'm looking at is the option 2 number that he had for the feasibility study that reduced the 660 by 50,000 from taxation to bring it down to 610. And now the the discussion was made that maybe the full 660 should go before the taxpayers as a capital exclusion. So now we have that 50 in taxation that we're not applying to the feasibility study.
I got it.
So,
And we have the 150 from reserves.
so technically speaking, do we gotta vote the 50?
Yes.
I'm questioning
I
the
guess.
numbers.
Yeah,
It seems to me we're talking about reducing the tax rate by 200,000 if we're talking those two items.
We voted 150, so now we gotta vote separately the 50, I guess?
I'm just trying to get the
I'm not
numbers right.
sh- Yeah, I might have made a mistake here. I'm trying to. So an option.
Can you help us, Andrea?
But conceptually, you're right, in the same way that we didn't wanna take 150 off the top of the 660, because we wanted that to be a clean number, because we didn't want an ugly warrant article, then the same logic should apply to the 50, right?
That's
I mean,
correct, yes.
Although technically speaking, we still probably gotta vote the 50 in the same way we voted the 150, right?
Yes. Did Andrea hear you?
She may be.
I did, I'm just a little confused about the 50. I'm not familiar with the 50.
Yeah, it was my back of the envelope, and I think I just,
Are you saying you don't think it was there, like, in the
The
beginning?
50's not there, Andrea?
No, I'm saying originally.
No.
Right?
so,
Oh, it
so
is.
what I did, I had the 150 here, which was from the Masons.
Yes.
in option
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And then I said, all right, let's only use 50 of that,
Right?
and it should have freed up.
Which I don't see. Well, wait a minute.
But if I go, so if I go to this, I have more confidence in this list, right? In the use of fund balance. So I'm now showing that 150. And the full 500 is reduced much. So did the 150 go from the less money and
What, this?
so Andrea, if we go back to the Mason in capital,
Yeah,
so now it should show 500 and 500 fund balance and 500 taxation. Do we show that in the master budget spreadsheet?
yes, I have that updated, so
Okay.
it does show it that way.
And you're showing on that master, the budget summary basically being balanced.
Yes,
I think we've accounted for it, and I made a mistake in my option 2 listing here.
But we didn't have that 50.
Oh, I know it. I see where, I know where I got it. Okay, so we had 200, right, extra revenue? That's right.
Yes,
So we had 200 and in my mind, I freed up 150 from the Mason building. I put 100 of it towards. That was an increase in taxation.
so where's the additional revenue from local receipts gone? If it's not in the feasibility. Oh, that, you got a 300,000 reducing the bond, which was
Correct.
additional local receipts and the Mason building tax
I
savings.
put those two together. I used 100 of it. Plus the 200 in extra
So
revenue.
you should use 150, you see, you still have that
I
50
still
that hasn't been
think
spent.
so if that 50 is right, then that it could be 350 instead of 300. When I grab this 50
Okay.
right here.
Yep.
And move it down to the 300.
Can we do that, Mike?
Yeah, just help me.
So, okay, now I understand. I'm sorry. So when we changed the funding for the Mason building, we basically grabbed another 150 from fund balance. And so that
From taxation.
versus taxation.
Yeah.
So that freed up
From
150 in
fund balance,
taxation.
not taxation. Okay.
So that freed up 150 in taxation. And I put 50 of it, originally I put 50 of it in feasibility and an extra 100 in capital, reducing the bond, combined with the extra 200 in revenue. That's how I got 300. Show this,
The 200 that we voted
less additional local receipts.
last meeting.
So this is
No, I know the 200.
the 200 additional
There's a lot I
receipts.
don't know, that I know.
So this 300 number here is that 200 in additional local receipts
Okay.
plus 100 of the 150 from the Masons.
So we
I don't, that's, I don't understand. What's the 150 from the Masons?
Because originally we had 650 in taxation. And now we've dropped it to 500 in taxation because we're using another 150 in fund balance.
Okay.
So now, if you want 100% of feasibility as a capital exclusion, I could take this 50 and I could add it to the 300.
That's what I would like.
And what does that do? When you-
Yes,
when you-
exactly. And what does that do?
Instead of borrowing 7.6 million, I'd borrow 7.55.
Okay,
Reduces borrowing.
but we still took the 150 to lower the 2.5 down to 2. That's totally
Yes.
separate.
It doesn't affect that.
Okay. It's almost like, where else are you gonna put the 50 and there's nowhere else to put it?
Well, it just makes sense to be consistent with what was
Yeah,
done.
no, I'm fine. I'm just like, there's literally, I guess, nowhere else to put it.
Yeah, well, we, I'm loath to bring this up at this hour of the process, but there is that last minute request about the 15,000 for the historic inventory, historic building inventory. They just received word of a grant that requires a match.
Okay, one thing at a time. So let's all agree that, because I think we're in agreement on this, to move the 50 down to the 300. Right,
To lower the borrowing.
to lower the borrowing amount, the
Yep.
bond amount. Do we
Got a
need-
motion?
do we need to vote?
Yes,
Second,
Andy seconds. Okay, take a vote. Andy,
yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Okay,
So Greg, that number's now 7,550,
fine.
okay.
so super high level. To hit the 8%, we found an extra 150 grand. We took that, voted, that's gonna lower the tax rate from 2.5 down to 2. Done, parked in a box over here. And then
Feasibility, school feasibility.
school feasibility, we leave at the
And
gross 650 standalone, that's a capital exclusion item.
Actually, adds 2.2 percentage points to the tax rate.
That's 2.2.
One time.
And then. What about row 37? What you're calling bond reduction tax, which is,
Not doing anything there.
Zero.
what is that, or what was it?
So at one point, there was discussion of increasing the tax rate in order to bond less. So add more to capital, CapEx for cash out of taxation in order to not to borrow so much.
We were at the 5%.
Maybe we're gonna use some of our,
So at one
Balance.
point, there was talk of going up to as much as 5%.
In tax rate, yeah, and increased taxes, yes.
But at the end of the day, we're gonna be in column D. Right? So property taxes are gonna go up 2%. And then there's gonna be a capital exclusion that adds 2.2% on top of it, for the total of 4.2.
That's where it stands right now, yes.
Right, and borrowing 7.55.
And borrowing 7.55 million.
Yeah.
You said that's where it stands right now. That implies. There's something, oh, okay.
It's Just need to finalize how much you wanna borrow. We haven't voted on the 7.55 yet.
That's a different spreadsheet.
The Article 5 capital.
If you go to Article 5, I need to modify it a
Yeah.
bit. Based on what we just did.
But
Oh, I
that,
should have done that first.
that other thing that you started to bring in, the 15,000,
Right?
what is it?
Historical,
You wanna go there now, or you want?
Historical, it can probably be CPC.
can we do just?
It
can we do
it
the
could be
article
CTC funding, but
What's that?
Well, I was thinking we do the Article 5 stuff. You know, That's like,
Is the 15 grand in an article or no?
I don't think so. It sounds like it's a Johnny come lately request.
That's why I'd rather deal with it first, but I don't care, but I don't care anyway.
Article 5
It
is
is
pretty
in
big.
there.
Excuse my language.
I'd rather deal with, I don't know,
Get it out of the line.
just get out of it.
It doesn't matter. If we're gonna tackle them both.
Right.
Well, we need to move to the capital budget. And we can discuss that 15,000 when we do the capital budget, right?
I just didn't know if we wanted to deal with it as a one-off.
I mean, if it can come from CPC. Of course, they've got another late request. Or from our fund balance, from the FinCom reserve,
It could be a reserve, yes.
if they get the,
If you, yeah, it could be a reserve. That's
Yeah,
it.
but I'd rather CPC.
So CPC requires. a vote.
sound abatement. for
Requires town meeting vote.
Pickleball,
And
another 20 grand. or
it's,
something.
it's,
Everything requires a vote.
Well, no, but it's
I have
it's
to-
one more item that gets added to CPC, that article that gets voted.
so we have to go back to CPC to get them to approve it, and it's gonna come back to you for approval. It's gotta go
They
through
have a
that
meeting
process,
next week.
and we're really out of time.
Yeah. They meet
That's,
on the
that's our
28th.
concern.
That's the way I wanna go.
Or you could do CPC next fall. That's another option.
Let's
What's
just,
the timeframe of
let's-
spending?
let's just put the 15,000 in. To the capital budget and have it paid from taxation.
No, I won't know. I'm not in agreement with that.
Well,
So that's why I was going with that 50,000. You go 35 and 15.
Right, what's the time frame on the historical society match? Does that have to be in fiscal 25?
Has to be fiscal.
The pickleball thing is a deal.
They hope to pay it out of reserves and make it immediately available after town meeting. They haven't filed the application yet. Oh, I got an email on it. Maybe you're not aware. Did you get it?
I didn't get, well,
Okay,
I haven't read it yet, but I.
It's immediate.
So
Might be a request.
Jack told, they don't have enough money left in their account to pay for the sound abatement.
CPC.
No. Parks and Rec of
Parks
money
and
they
Rec.
received
From
from
the original
CPC.
CPC allocation.
So they need more money. And Jack said, well, you need to get the application in by, I think, today. So that he could call a meeting next week. To approve it. And then it has to come back to us.
Call a meeting of the
CPC.
CPC next week.
we're scheduled on.
So
one
if
week.
CPC is having a meeting next week, then why can't we?
But he said the application would be in today, I think.
So then, I think we can work it, so it's a $5,000 shortfall. And.
Oh, take it from revenue
Take it from your reserve account.
or from revenue,
Take it from-
up the revenue assumption. If
This
it-
is in 20, this is in 24.
It's 24.
Oh,
What
God.
thing are we talking, I thought I was talking historical district, you're talking the sound.
Oh, no, we switched back to sound.
Let's talk in here. Paddling back and forth.
I'm afraid it's getting real close. People put this thing up in the woods somewhere. It'd be cheaper to just relocate.
Make it fluid.
Unfortunately.
On a float out of the water.
It's a disaster,
Old school.
What's the disaster?
pickleball courts.
What's the dollars on that? Just.
I don't know how much has been spent on
I think we appropriated 20,000 for this abatement and now it's going up.
We've appropriated 20 towards sound.
Yes.
And we need another 5 to do this.
it. Oh, only 5?
Yeah, as long as we're comfortable taking fence expense out of regular maintenance accounts.
What's the total cost of the
What's the
pickleball
total
courts?
cost?
And the, and the sound abatement, yeah. What's the total cost of it all?
Probably 100,000.
See, and none of that comes through us, and that just kind of
Right.
irks me.
What's CPC sitting on roughly?
They've
Yeah.
used up most of their money, but
I think we have 150.
How much?
150-ish.
Yeah, about 150.
150?
Yeah, I think that was about what we have as a balance. But it has to be in ratios too, so.
Yeah, no, well, I'm just,
It'd be nice if it could happen through CPC.
yeah, I mean, if
But,
they're sitting
but
on,
if the timing, you know, doesn't want to get forced.
but I just heard that,
We're talking about 5K here, right?
For simplicity's sake.
I thought it was 50.
know.
I thought we were talking about
Just
15.
move on.
You
I
can be
mean,
fine. Because you can pay for the, so the fence that was, expanded fencing that was built,
they have to make it higher.
that could be, that can come out of general field. maintenance.
Okay, hold on, time out.
There's a
I thought we
two-
started this conversation talking about like a historical commission thing for 15 grand, and then we quickly switched over to pickleballs and noise
Another
abatement.
5.
And so I'm confused. I thought,
I would, in terms of the historic, 15,000. Wait until the fall, and if they get the grant, we'll do a CPC request in the fall.
sure.
Put that aside.
Okay, so we just
Is there
punted that.
nothing for There's nothing for historical district in the capital budget?
This year.
No,
Because that request for 15,000 came through months ago.
it's actually originally it was 30,000.
Okay.
Didn't know about the grant.
Okay,
And then I got confused because they already had 15,000 and I thought we were duplicating efforts. So that was my mistake for not putting it in my original,
okay, Okay.
original
okay.
capital budget.
Okay, so super high level, the 15,000 historical thing, we just pushed it to the fall.
I think we did.
You can, if you want to add it. I'm not worried about adding 15,000 to this year's capital, but
Well, I had another concern with it that might influence putting it to the fall, and that's it shouldn't just be restricted to buildings. I think we should include the harbor and parks in it as well. And I don't know if the grant. would allow
Historic
that.
District Commission does buildings. They don't do harbors and parks.
Wow. That's part of the historic.
No, it's not, Historic District Commission does
The area that's
structures.
about to get massacred.
They
Oh,
do structures.
But just to keep us in a lane,
let's keep.
we're
it-
talking
yeah,
about a
let's-
specific $15,000 historic thing
Yeah,
request. And
Historic
and
district.
I'll make a motion to defer that to the fall. The way you just said, it, like,
I'll second.
Does that need a motion? Is that right?
well, there's nothing wrong with having a motion.
yeah. it doesn't hurt to- We can have motions about all kinds of things.
Yeah, I got it.
Are we ready to vote on
Positive and
that?
negative.
Andy, Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay. Took the
We-
15,000
so
over.
we dealt with that, right? We pushed it to the fall.
Okay. Now are we ready to vote on this capital improvement plan for 2025? We've been working on it since last October.
I have a question on the library.
We've already voted the library.
Well,
Oh,
just,
no, we haven't. I'm sorry.
well, the question was this building expansion study.
Yes,
Usually the first step of that is a building assessment. So rather than pay 43,000 for a building assessment separately, can't we put it in and only pay half of it because of the grant?
no, they're applying for a grant in May.
Yeah.
And the 150,000 is the matching portion.
Right.
That's required.
Right.
And the building assessment study has to be done before they apply for the grant. Because it's required as
Okay.
part of the application.
Okay.
Just like we had to do for the schools.
Yeah, I just thought that they're not gonna expand the building in this, they're just gonna look at
No, it's-
options.
It's just a
This,
system.
this
Yeah,
this
that's what I
PDF,
mean, why are we, what is it?
This is the state required.
Greg, in this PDF I downloaded from ClearGov, it's lost that breakdown in the library between the 43.5 and it has just library walkway repair replace. It doesn't, it's lost that. The breakdown with that study.
So it should be, yeah, so this shows,
Yeah,
the 6,500 and the 43.5
right.
and the 150.
We just need to change ClearGov.
Okay,
Yeah, Sarah, what I did is, in the capital, I kept the original requests in there, and then there's a supplemental page after the capital that has these updated amounts.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so it takes out the 20. I just wanted to show, what was originally questioned and what was changed. So that's
I
why.
just wanted to make sure Andy knew that I pulled off the ClearGov stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. If
Who
you
is
go,
that?
if you go down like 3 pages on ClearGov, there's more of a breakdown.
Oh, I got the revised.
The library, it's 2 line items, so it's the 150 and
Got it,
150.
okay. I pulled it off, I pulled off a PDF. How did you get, did you get that down onto your laptop or you're going directly in?
I just went into ClearGov.
Okay,
just to
okay.
Follow the link that.
Yeah, okay,
Greg-
I hadn't gotten back into that yet, okay. So we have a total, Lord help us. Capital budget of 12,769,100, is that correct?
um, wait a minute. Well, so. You're at 12?
No, the stuff hasn't been changed.
No.
Yes, now. The things haven't been changed, the plant upgrades. It should be down to 4 million instead of 4.1.
Right, right. So that's.
So this,
that-
this
that's-
isn't right.
If you look on here. you look so what I sent,
It is updated.
No, it's.
No, it's
in
not. I
ClearGov,
just
but it
pulled
is
the
in-
PDF off at
But
4
it is in
o'clock.
Greg's spreadsheet here.
Oh. It is on mine.
Which spreadsheet? The one he sent yesterday?
Yes.
Yes.
This is.
Okay.
Oh,
This is-
that's not.
that you see on the screen here now.
This one's clear.
So we're talking a total of 10,499,100.
Correct.
Okay,
Which spreadsheet? It must,
Yeah, I'm just
It
trying
says,
to.
it says
Not the Article
Article
5
5 capital.
oh, it is the other, okay.
but what confused me, and I hate to bring this up again, is there's nothing on the line item for the Mason building.
So.
So I
But because it
I
pulled out-
remember I took that out because it needs to be voted separately because it's a real estate land purchase. And so that's why I put it with the other articles.
So it's a
Also
separate
separate
warrant
article.
article.
Okay.
Right. So
Thank
it's
you.
not part of Article 5.
And,
Okay.
and the 150 from the library would probably have to be a standalone article too, because there's some special language associated with it for the grant.
So you have those pulled out into column H, the 150, which is the match of the grant, but there's also the walkway and the building assessment. Are they part of that? That has to go to a special vote?
No,
Why?
the walkway and, oh, well, no, because they can just. be
They're
reflected.
coming-
The normal
They're
capital.
coming out of the 250
Right,
reappropriation.
so the motion for Article 5 would indicate the source for each line item. So we do that anyway, we say taxation, fund balance, and we can say, reappropriated capital. And we-
And so it can be in Article 5.
Yes,
Okay,
but the 150 really should not be Article 5.
what 150?
For the,
Line match.
for the
Match.
building grant match,
So that's what I'm kind of
Why?
asking, is that they're all grouped together.
because that one has to specifically approve applying for it and accepting the state library grant.
Okay,
It's in a similar bucket to the feasibility study.
Exactly, it's like a feasibility study.
okay.
very similar to MSBA, and
It's a commitment to take a bigger project on if we get.
so if I take that 150 out,
So the 150 will be a separate warrant article,
be a separate one.
Okay,
so that means we reduce the total down below by.
So that now becomes 10,349, 100.
10, 3, 4, 9, 100.
So just to be clear, the 500 for the Mason building's not in there because it has to be.
Separate.
Okay. What's the 150 you just took out?
Library
Library
expansion
expansion
study. Because it has to be associated, it has to be voted along with permission to apply for and receive the grant. I mean, you could do it here, but I think it makes more sense to approve the grant application along with the funding. I know that I wouldn't, you could imagine it being approved in the capital and then not approve it in the separate article that approves the grant application.
No, I mean, other than adding more time to an already long and arduous town meeting, it makes sense to have things be very specific, right? Like, I want this, yes or no, I want this, yes or no, I want, as opposed to just a big bucket of stuff and.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve Article 5 capital budget in the amount of $10,349,100?
So moved.
Maury moves.
Kind of as
Second.
one question,
Andy seconds. Okay, go ahead with your question. We can discuss it now.
I'm just looking at the biggest numbers and obviously like. They mostly make sense, but the water meter 1.4. Like, that just is what it is.
Yeah, that's replacing everybody's meters.
Will there be any benefit? On the,
What we
So
discussed.
one of the biggest benefits is that it catches leaks right away. It's real time metering and you have that on your phone on an app. And you'll know if you're leaking water.
Sort of avoids those nasty abatement, kind of, discussions that happen where somebody suddenly gets a bill for $8,000 because they finally caught up with their readings.
And avoids wasting water, hopefully.
And it avoids wasting time.
So it's
what's there, like 2,000 households? Roughly,
20.
2,500.
I wanted to divide by 2,000. If I divide that by 2,000, I get 700 a pop.
Well, I think there was talk about,
Chuck's on if you want to ask them
there was
specifically.
talk about adding a flat fee for the water bills that would pay for this.
Okay,
So if it's paid for with the flat fees, then you eventually wouldn't need to bond it.
And that's the cost of the meter and that's also the install.
who installs?
Contractor.
I think it's contracted.
Like the town pays the third party company?
Yeah,
To get them all done.
and that's the
No,
way.
no, no, I'm not coming on it that way, I'm coming on more just like, it just seems like you get into liability stuff, right? Cause you're on a private property and stuff
Well,
like that.
a number of years ago, the town bought water meters to replace everyone's water meter, and the town was installing them. We never could figure out where all the water meters went, and they weren't installed. So we don't want a recurrence of that,
That sounds.
right?
How long ago was that?
I don't
That
know.
was.
It was certainly before COVID, quite a few years before COVID,
It
so
was under a different,
it was when that lady
Management
was
group.
here.
It was a similar.
It was actually before.
Before her.
it was
Similar
before
meeting
her.
to meeting discussion like the.
To your point, Sarah, is there any way that we can
Third party.
govern that where the thing you said about like specific
I
flat
think that.
fee, blah, blah, blah?
I think that if the flat fee were imposed, that they could use that would go to the water enterprise fund, right?
So-
And they could repay the bond if we needed to bond it.
So of the 7.5 million. More than half should be able to be paid off through the water and sewer fees.
But I think what Sarah's saying is even a little different, whereas if the flat fee was implemented, you wouldn't even need to borrow in the first place for that specific amount.
No, no, you still need to.
We wouldn't have collected enough, I
Okay,
guess, by the time they install them.
Okay.
You'll pay the debt service, for sure.
Well, what
So
if we,
tax rate won't be as, the increase won't be as much.
I would give an approach that would, put that as a separate article and pay it right on the water bill as opposed to this capital.
So the bond votes will be separate, you have to do a separate bond vote.
But for the water meter itself, that item for people to come and, do you want a new water meter or not?
No, they're doing the whole town.
That'll be hard.
If
It's not
voted in
pick
the
and
articles.
No, I don't think we want to be that messy.
Yeah, it would.
It's gonna impact billing, it's gonna impact everything.
No, not individually. I mean, we vote at town meeting, yes or
So
no.
people could, so we'll have an
would-
article for
Yes.
1.55 million. And it'll say for water and sewer projects. If people want to reduce that amount
At the meeting.
at the
floor.
meeting by saying, we don't want to do the water meters, that is an option. We're not recommending that, but that is an option. So I would do it that way rather than list it out as a separate article. You know,
That's-
bond for the meters, bond for the, I want to have separate articles bonding.
I mean,
for the meters.
Essex does a separate article for every capital item,
Really?
That's
yeah,
too much,
which
but
is.
this is something that's not really required. It's just, okay, it's a benefit.
Well,
Well, the logic is it makes sense. We talked about it. It gets presented by the selectman, town manager, finance chair. And then people have an option to put a hold on it. And so they can say, I want to put a hold on item 4 in capital. But otherwise, it's part of a package.
I just wanna say in general, when it comes to borrowing, we need to borrow short-term bands and or callable bonds such that, right, if the cash flow comes in better than expected, we have the ability to, you know, pay off bonds quicker.
Yeah, and given what we have, you know, on the horizon for these, I would probably do shorter term. And I'm thinking that we might do a 10-year bond rather than the normal 20. Obviously, the annual payments are higher, but you're done with it sooner. And
You're not paying as much.
But you know, but I'm saying with a call provision.
yes,
so
I
that-
understand.
Yeah.
okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Could I ask you a question, please? Greg, on number 9, on Article 5, which is the Land Management Historic District, at 15,000. Is that state? I don't see that on the list up here. Is that, am I missing something?
Oh, right, that brings up the draft warrant.
Yeah,
Right, that had that 15,000 historic, but that will come off.
okay, there we go. That's the 15,000.
That's the
Okay,
15,000.
thank you, thank you. Just checking one against the other.
So we're voting on capital budget of $10,349,100. Are we ready to vote or is there more discussion?
Ready to vote?
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
No.
Mike,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay, so that was approved. 321, okay. So now. We have other things to vote on. That aren't. On our stuff.
this is the warrant.
And the one article missing is this draft that you have in front of you, and that is that supplemental legal of 100,000. That needs to be a standalone article that's not in here.
Number 3.
So what is highlighted in yellow are the highlighted articles that are yellow redundant. Anyway, so highlighted articles are the ones that have money. Involved.
So we have to vote everything
So-
highlighted in yellow.
So you've already done these, right? So Article 3 is the,
That's what I was gonna say. I thought we already did.
yeah, Article 3 is the vote capital.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Article 4 is operating.
We just did it.
Article 5 is capital.
We just did it.
Yeah.
But then all these others were not in the capital we voted for,
That's why
correct?
I asked the
Yeah.
question about 15.
So Article 6 is the harbor launch.
We did it. We did it, right?
We've done
No,
that.
when did we vote for that?
20-30 minutes ago. No?
No,
It was in the.
We have not.
we didn't vote on anything
didn't
on
vote the
that.
dollar.
We voted on this spreadsheet.
You voted the concept, you didn't vote the dollar amount.
Do we want to go back to that?
We voted the concept, we didn't. Like these numbers I seen here, I remember seeing them in the spreadsheet.
Correct. The 125 was in your.
The
use of-
125, the 9,500,
Yeah, so those two numbers were part of what you approved for using from fund balance.
yeah.
You haven't actually approved the operating expense. It's just under
You mean the
41,000.
41
I
and
was
the-
just, I was rounding up. It's 40,000. Let me get that number, but
So to be super technical for Article 6, we did vote the 9,500 and the 125, we did
No,
not.
we didn't vote. We did not vote for,
just vote.
We missed
Just
the
vote
operating
numbers.
report.
Vote all three.
we didn't vote for those items to be spent.
You identified the fund.
I mean, we did implicitly, I mean, I guess we gotta vote it
Implicitly.
again to beat a dead horse, it's fine, but I definitely voted it because I saw the 9,500 and the 125 up there. I know exactly where it's coming from, but okay, I'll vote it again, it's fine. Beat a dead horse,
Wait,
whatever.
the 9,500, there's 9,500 in here for no wake buoys, that's in the capital. The
That's-
9,500 we're talking about in Article 6 is for labor.
Right,
That's labor for,
May and June of this
This
current
year,
fiscal year to get the launch operating.
two different numbers, well, two
We,
different uses of
the
the same.
first, well, so the first spreadsheet we looked at,
First spreadsheet has 9,500 here that says beside it,
It has numbers.
expenditure for launch service
but we didn't vote it.
We did
FY 24,
We
that
did
ties
not-
with this.
appropriate, we did not vote to appropriate those monies.
Well, let's do that. Let's do that.
Stuff that
I'm
we did.
trying to figure out. Right now, stuff is all over the place and I'm struggling with that. So should we be going through the warrant articles to vote on these numbers? Because they're not like, the Mason building purchase of $1 million isn't any place anymore. Used to be on, so that's a warrant article.
So you need to approve that.
Right. So I think that probably we should have a motion to approve the cost of the launch service in Article 6, and it's
We're making.
95, what?
We're making a recommendation, wouldn't we, on Article 6, like the Finance Committee recommends or does not recommend the passing of Article 6, isn't that what's being framed here?
Well, we were gonna hold the recommendation to the town meeting to get the survey results or the feedback from.
You
You know,
wanted to do that, but I don't think everyone wanted to do that.
I'm sure we were right there.
We weren't quite there yet.
I'm just, what's the 41 grand, the operating, like,
The
you know?
operating budget for the next year.
Fiscal year 25.
And the
And
95.
those are the harbor fund.
Let me ask my question a different way, and I do not wanna like keep debating this until whatever, but in my mind, I already voted on the 9,500 and the 125. I will vote it again, that's fine,
Thank
but
God.
at least I know exactly what those two things are, cause whatever. The 41 though, where is that?
It's the operating budget for the service during the next year's summer season.
No, I get it, but my point is
More
more,
recovered by new revenue, so your.
Right.
your-
We have to go
The
through and
harbor,
be spent.
the harbor. Harbor fund will have that increased revenue coming in to pay for this expense.
but that 41 in operating expense, we did not vote it anywhere ever before.
Correct, you have not.
We've
First
we've not
Time
voted
we've
that.
seen it.
That is the first time.
But we
I've
don't
seen-
have to appropriate it?
Yes, that's what this, that's what this article would do.
So the money for the people pay to use the launch is gonna go into the harbor fund? Or are we gonna have a firewall in there somewhere?
No, it's going into the harbor fund. There's no,
Okay.
you gotta
So-
wait till it's been running
So
a
to
few
balance,
years.
so to balance the budget, we will
Right.
increase local receipts by
Right.
41,000.
Yeah.
And we're gonna increase expenditures by
Oh.
41,000.
Just to, okay.
So can I, just a little clarity, forgotten a lot since last year apparently. The warrant articles are often redundant to the budgets that we've already voted. If we go down through the
In this
various.
particular case, you have
budgets.
not voted the launch budget.
Right, and so normally, we can't rely on future revenues to cover a cost that we're going to incur. We end up having to appropriate the money to
Right.
cover that cost. But to Mike's point, I don't think we've seen this 41,000.
Right, I think the issue here is normally this 41,000 would have been in our operating budget for fiscal year 25. But instead, the town has decided that they want to have the launch service voted on separately by the people as a warrant article, but we still have to appropriate these
Recommended
monies.
appropriation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we have to do this like we do all this other budget stuff. But it's not in there.
It's not there yet.
Greg, shouldn't the 41 be reduced by what's gonna be spent in this year? The budget I gave you when I
No,
did
because
the
you're gonna
business
have
plan.
that- You're gonna have next May and June in FY 25.
The full 12 months.
You'll have the same.
Oh, you'll have 12 months. Yes, of course. Yes. Because when I gave you the business plan, it had an operating budget of 40,250.
250, that's, I rounded to 40.
I know, yeah, and I just wanted to let you know, that's when you last saw it.
Right.
Right.
So you can go with the 40,250.
You know, anything you want for, the difference is immaterial, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion.
Terrific.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve 9,500, approve for the launch service. $9,500, the fiscal year 24 operating expense. $41,000 for the fiscal year 25 operating expense, and $125,000 as a capital expense. Maury moves. Do I have a second?
Yes, seconded. Yes.
Peter seconds.
So.
Any discussion?
Point of order, the $9,500 is not technically FY 25 budget, right?
It's FY 24,
Right,
which is
so
what I said.
it's just the article, okay.
And to your point, that will probably come out of like FinCom reserve or something
Right.
like that in the last 2 weeks of.
No, we're
looking at that.
appropriating it.
At this point, it's coming out of your fund balance, you're appropriating as a supplemental budget.
Take a vote. Andy,
Yes,
Dean,
No,
Mike,
No,
Peter,
Yes.
Maury,
yes.
Sarah votes yes. Okay, so 321. Okay. 7, we don't have to do anything on.
So 7 is so that'll be 7.55 million now.
That's right.
Article 8 is the library, that 150,
But
Mhm.
we've appropriated that, we've voted for that money.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. Article 9 is the Mason building.
Okay, that we haven't voted for. Okay. So I'll take a motion to approve $1 million for the purchase of the Mason property.
So move.
Peter
Peter.
moves. Second,
Second.
Maury seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Andy,
yes,
Dean,
No,
Mike,
no,
Peter,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay,
So 10 is that opioid transfer.
we voted on
You
that.
voted that. Well, 11, that is the school
We voted on that.
operating budget, yeah. And then Article 12 is the feasibility funding.
Okay,
And we take away the brackets around Capital exclusion.
Yeah, I need to work on this language to indicate that it's gonna be a capital exclusion, which will be, so that's a two-step vote, right? That's a
Yes.
town meeting vote and a ballot vote.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, some of this language still needs tweaking. The general concepts are there.
That would turn down one.
What's this? Feasibility, I
I mean,
think it'll go through, but
yeah, I think there's a real question about it.
I think the bigger plans are gonna go through Essex.
Well,
Essex, I think.
I think they'll do it.
Because their finance committee and select board is behind it. Because they want the school.
I'll bet you $1.
Oh, really? You think there's enough people in town that don't want the school?
I was just talking about Manchester, but
Interesting.
the interesting thing is if they end up building it, they'll probably house everybody over here for a year or two.
And then they'll realize that you don't need it. Right, exactly.
that's actually during construction, of course.
Don't want to go there.
Yeah, no, that's, that I will not argue. I'm 100% agreeing on that.
Well, they're talking about building it on a different site,
Exactly.
acquiring land.
Okay, 13.
Well, no, we've got to vote on the 660.
Okay.
Do I have,
Motion?
yeah,
Vote that we approve Article 12 with $660,000 for capital exclusion for the feasibility study.
Second.
any discussion? Take a vote. Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
No.
Peter,
Yes.
Warren.
Yes.
I think Sarah's gonna vote no.
And 13 is the final payment that we owe for the turf field. And again, this was anticipated to come out of fund balance. The number, I'm a little high here. Do you have that number offhand, Andrea? The Highland Field, it's 248, 3 something, I think,
348.
348, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
What? Do we have invoice in hand as of yet? From the school
Yes,
district?
we do.
I have a motion to approve the balance of the funding for the Highland Field turf replacement in the amount of 250,000.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
any vote? Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes.
Article 14 is the CPC projects, you've approved those, yeah. And then the last one is Article 16. Which is the OPEB.
We already voted. for
Which
that.
you have voted for.
Okay, and then we have the 100,000 in legal expenses.
So that's the other one that
Okay,
is need to be added.
Where are we high level with the FinCom reserve? Like, how much have we pulled out? How much is left? How much are we gonna need to pull out?
Finance reserve. fund.
Yeah,
Um,
We haven't used any. It's still at 190 for this fiscal year.
I guess where I'm going is this 100 grand in legal fees, like, can we pull it out of there?
also, we're anticipating closer to 200 that we need. So we were going to. Our thought was to ask for 100 supplemental and then you either use your reserve fund or transfer from other line items that have come under to cover that.
Let me ask a question a different way. Out of the 190, we haven't used a penny yet.
Right.
Do you already have some other big need budgeted use?
You will need 100 of that probably for overtime and police and fire.
So then use the other 90 for. legal?
Andrea, the other things we need for the reserve? That you're
What Greg was saying, for public safety overtime, we'll need some for ZBA appeals, unemployment. Yeah, I have a little list.
Well, I guess what I'm suggesting is let's just, run the numbers, and I know it's not gonna be perfect, but let's just make sure we're gonna use it all. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so in other words, if there is an extra 40, 50, 60, whatever the number is in the FinCom reserve. And maybe somehow that, you know, lowers the,
My problem is, I won't know that until after town meeting.
you won't know
I
what,
won't know all the,
Probable expenses.
those needs, I won't know all the need for the reserve fund until after town meeting. And I know I'm looking at about a $200,000 overrun in legal expenses. So I'm banking on finding 100 of that either through reserves or perhaps some other under expensed
okay.
line items.
I guess my point is, I don't really care what the 190 goes to, whether it goes towards fire overtime, police overtime, legal,
Right.
but as long as it gets used.
It'll get
You know what I
used.
mean? I don't wanna see it have 90 grand left and then it just
It will
drops
get
down.
used. I'm
You know what I mean?
Very creatively.
As long as it gets used for something. Like, that, then, you know,
So are we ready to make a motion to approve a supplemental legal budget in the amount of 100,000 for fiscal year 24?
Oh, is that, I'm sorry, the
Which
question
article are you on?
is before us?
There's no article.
Do we have to do that now, or can we do that closer to?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess we do
No.
need to do it for the budget, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it's part of the whole budget package.
Oh, yeah, okay, got it.
So yes, a vote tonight is needed.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Peter seconds.
I just wanna make sure that the 190 is gonna get used.
Yeah.
The 190 is gonna get used?
I can't guarantee that. Well, I know that's a guessing.
It's being close.
game.
What's
Hold
that?
on, let Andrea speak. Andrea?
I was gonna say, right now, I estimate it to be close, which is how we came up with 100,000 for the supplemental appropriation.
Okay, so by your numbers for all the things you said. Police,
Mm-hmm.
fire OT and what'd you say, workers comp, I don't know, but with all
Yeah,
those
no,
things you said,
Mhm.
Sure.
you're. You're like, whatever, 80, 90% sure it's gonna use up the bulk of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrea.
Mhm.
I have a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote? Any more discussion? Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes.
So the rest are bylaw changes. I'm sorry. I should have flagged 17, which is, it's the revolving funds. It's the annual approval.
Sorry, what?
This is the Park and Rec revolving fund. This is money they take in. These they collect for programs and then those monies go back out to pay for those programs.
So this is just a recommendation. Right?
This is, we do this every year.
Article 17. It's a.
It's just a recommendation.
More of
It's
a
not
mechanical,
appropriate.
more of a mechanical thing.
Right.
than anything else.
It's perfunctory to tell you the truth.
Greg, does that also include the health department revolving?
Yeah, I was just thinking of that, Andrea. We should just do the two of them together.
Okay,
So yeah, I should add to this the health revolving as well.
How much is that?
looking it up right now.
Yeah, I want to say 50,000, but we should go a little higher than it was this current year.
Sorry,
Why,
I'm just
why
trying to-
is the health a revolving fund? Is that because there's activity in this year that gets distributed to the next? Like, why is there a?
So it involves vaccinations, like when
There's a delay in getting reimbursed, right?
Okay, all right, so.
Yes,
the
insurance reimbursements.
Reimbursement out of a fiscal year problem. Okay.
I just, at a very high level, I know you think I've been on FinCom long enough, I know what this is, but what, I don't understand Article 17.
So by statute, we have to annually approve the amounts that we anticipate a revolving fund is going to be utilized. So we annually approve the revolving fund for the Park and Rec department. So the after-school program, people pay a fee, and we use those fees to pay the kids, the older kids who are watching the younger kids. Or the summer program, same thing. Or they go to a field trip to a water slide, and they pay $50 to go to the water slide. So we collect those fees, and those fees get used to pay for that trip.
So the revolving fund is a specific fund,
It's in and out,
it's a specific for Parks and Rec.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we have a second revolving fund that we just set up last year for the Board of Health for vaccinations. And was it in that 50,000 range, Andrew? Did you see it? Or-
It is, yes, it is.
So, 50's fine. I don't think we can boast of that, so.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
So do I have a motion to approve, to recommend Article 17? Revolving fund for the Parks and Rec and for the Health Department,
So for the Parks and Rec, amount of 400, and the Health Department, amount of 50,000,
okay?
second or so.
Okay. Ready to vote?
Yeah.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes.
So Greg, just, this is like crazy theory world, but the only way that this Article 17 would actually come into play is if like, I don't know. 1,000 extra kids signed up for the summer stuff and like the amount of money that went in the fund and then was to come out was greater than 400 grand, like, is that?
No.
No, it's,
Well, so it just reaffirms that we have a revolving fund. And we anticipate this amount of cash to go in and out of it.
But doesn't it puts a spending limitation, right?
Correct.
No, I'm just saying, like in crazy world, you,
Oh, if suddenly we had 1,000 kids. sign
right,
up,
like if you had 1,000 kids and the amount of money that went in was greater than 400 grand, which never happened, but I'm just saying, and then you actually couldn't pull more than 400 out.
Wait,
Is that what that's
go to the
saying?
General fund,
let's
wouldn't
go
it?
into the general fund. So if we
Right.
didn't vote it, it was 0. Then Parks and Rec would have a hell of a time trying to figure out how to balance revenues this year and next year.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
The amount.
I know I'm in crazy theory world, I'm just trying to see how that would ever even come into play.
So do we have to
It's
do
only the old state law requires us to do it.
it, or do we do that? Article 22 is that always that,
That happens at the
That's
meeting.
on, recommendation on town meeting.
that's,
So if somebody stands up and says, we
I-
wanna pay for a new,
I know what it is, I didn't know if we have to do something about it this
Well, no,
evening.
we have to, once the warrant's final,
Yes.
we have to go through all of the non-financial articles to make a recommendation, and so we'll include it when we do that,
Okay,
right?
so that's why we sort of.
Well,
go
I'm
into
not sure
session
you'll have a
before.
recommendation on these other ones.
so we have a meeting.
We always-
in-
Always say,
No, no,
Well,
no,
we say we have
we take no position.
Right.
right, but we vote on that every year,
Yeah,
for every single
Yeah.
warrant article.
right.
But you're gonna you're gonna want to do that at your next meeting or have
Yeah.
the report on the floor.
Okay, I'm just asking.
When is it's like we're voting on this?
On the second, first, April 1st.
Yeah, so we have other meetings.
So,
So we're good?
you want to approve minutes?
Yeah.
We've had some.
I looked at the ones that Gail sent out, they looked fine.
So you're making a motion to approve the minutes from February 7th?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
I abstain.
Okay. Next meeting. So. We have to go through the warrant articles. The non-financial ones, right?
Won't take long.
And we have the annual report. When does the warrant go to press? Print?
We need it back the 5th.
Okay,
That's the latest I want to get it. If I need a little sooner now, it'd be great. But if we get it there by the 5th, we'll make it.
so I'm thinking we perhaps don't need a meeting next week. And that we meet on April 3rd to approve the warrant articles and to approve the FinCom report. Does that make sense to people? Is that okay?
You make me a little nervous, and that's just, I'd be a little more comfortable if you finished up next week.
I can't get it written and have it reviewed by them. There's absolutely no way.
That's,
Well, select board isn't voting. the
I
warrants.
can't.
And they're voting on first, so.
I get it,
7 o'clock on
I get it.
third.
What?
Excuse me.
I mean, this is the 21st and I can't even at this point figure out all these numbers. That I need to get into my report because it's just so over the place.
Yeah, no, I support you.
I've been working on it, but I haven't worked on it for a couple of weeks. So. If I can try to get it to, oh God. To Andy so he can get it up on. SharePoint, so you have at least a week to work on it, does that make sense?
Okay.
With the expectation that it will be final. In SharePoint. Before April 3rd. So we're not rewriting things April 3rd. I mean, it worked well last year, right?
It works really well. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you need it on the 5th, right? So that gives a day or two for Andrea to tweak up a graph or two,
well,
or-
that's right, Andrea has to do stuff.
but that's usually pretty quick.
she's gonna start that now. She'll give you. All those spreadsheets and numbers,
Okay, yeah,
so that'll help you.
yeah, if she can give me all the spreadsheets and numbers and if. If we can include her on SharePoint too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then she'll have access,
Both of us can look at it.
yeah,
Yep.
so give Greg and Andrea access to. And I'll,
So that can, work.
Yeah.
As soon as you start it, Sarah, and then you can send it to me and I'll send it back to you as a SharePoint. Whatever you want to do.
Wants to hide under a cloak of darkness as he gets further along. Believe me, some of us have been there before.
well, one of the things I'm doing, and I hope people won't have objection to this. Is my plan was to cut down on the amount under the schools. The schools issue their own report, and I've kind of felt that our section has been too detailed on the schools and that we might just have less in it, and because like last year, the numbers were wrong anyway, because they were all changed.
Less is more.
Yeah,
Right, less is
Okay.
more.
Okay,
I believe that in terms of general, I think it's just too long.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do,
I think it's really great that
Yeah.
you're doing that.
yeah. I mean, I've eliminated all that stuff on the dispatch and, you know, I'm trying to get rid of and I've eliminated the explanation on the capital exclusion. We're not using excess levy capacity this year, right? So I don't need, I was gonna explain what excess levy capacity is, but since we're not using it, I'm not going to explain it. Okay. I keep pulling out and working on it, but right now I have 3 ZBA decisions to write too, so I've gotten really behind, I'm sorry. Hopefully that's after.
Just for clarity,
so
so
7 o'clock on the 3rd, room to be determined.
yep, the 3rd is 7.
There'll be room 5. Right, I don't see the need for it, do you? Unless you'd like it. What?
I think you're good with this.
Yeah.
Like I said, Andrew and I can certainly help and
Okay, yeah,
get you final numbers and.
I usually have to consult with Andrea anyway to make sure my numbers are accurate.
Placeholders.
Motion to adjourn?
I didn't read it.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks.
Oh, can you hit the button in the lower right hand corner to say leave meeting? Yes.